Raf,
James,
it's great to see you again, mate, on a screen only. Screen only. I haven't seen you in person in a while. We haven't cracked open an ice cold beer in too long.
that's true. I miss those days. I miss them. It seems like only yesterday we were cracking an ice cold beer.
We were sitting in the Duke Hotel in Enmore, bit of a reference for the Sydney heads, cracking open an ice cold beer and eating a burger that cost $65.
Just like how it should be. And I think a beer that was $20 for a pint.
Exactly.
Remember we told this story, did we? I
don't think we did.
We got warned on buying it. You know this costs $20.
Because you got like a Bolter, one of their limited run fucking hazies or whatever. And the bartender actually said, you know this is $20. That was one of our biggest swag and pimp moments where we were like, doesn't matter, darling.
Actually, pour 3 and pour 1 down the drain. Sink it.
So we're coming to you today directly after a news event. I've recorded this within 12 minutes of it occurring, so our initial analysis might be somewhat poor.
We're in the fog of war.
We're in the fog of war, folks. So Anthropic CEO, Anthropic being obviously one of the 2 leading AI labs with OpenAI, is in Australia. Dario Amodei is in Canberra talking to Australian lawmakers as part of a tour of the country. He's opened up their office in Sydney and now he's doing his little spooky stories routine to our local lawmakers, being like, this stuff is going to take your job, take your wife, and then kill you.
Yes.
I believe that's the current messaging.
Yeah. Are you all ready for an info hazard, folks? Don't say I didn't warn you after you hear me.
So it's a good excuse, well, to talk about that, first of all. And then second of all, there's been a little bit of Anthropic stuff floating around. So we're going to talk about that. They've had leaks of Claude code and their latest model. There's been a bit more on the OpenAI stuff around, their next model too. So there's a bit of stuff in the air around that. And then Meta, this happened just after last week's episode, I believe, have lost a major case in the California courts, which could have some broader implications for social media and regulation and all the rest of it. So,
like, who's responsible for the batshit things you see online and this kind of gear?
That kind of stuff. Yeah, who's responsible? Who's responsible for why your teenagers are a little bit sad?
Yeah, good question.
Good question.
Good question. We'll get to the bottom of it. Ramageddon is cancelled. There's a bit of chip chat. Ramageddon is cancelled.
Yeah, don't worry about Ramageddon, folks. For you gamers, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
At least in terms of RAM costs. Probably not much else in your life.
Yeah, and also only maybe.
We're sorry we can't help you out beyond that. So we're going to talk about that. There's been a few lot of bits and pieces. That'll be after the paywall. That'll be in our paid episode. So stay tuned for that.
Well, I mean, if you're a big Allbirds head, it might get a mention. And if you're a big ARM head, it might get like a fleeting mention.
Exactly. So, there's a lot to look forward to. But anyway, so as I said, starting with Anthropic, Dario Amodei, CEO, he's in Australia. They're opening up their Sydney office. OpenAI also has a Sydney office. It's mostly looks like it's just a forward-deployed sales and customer support arm, although they are hiring currently a head of policy, which is part of their sort of like blitz to get governments across the world on board with Claude Code.
Yeah, well, I mean, what is the actual strategy, right? Because, I mean, maybe before we go into it, a lot of the kind of scuttlebutt, that's a better way to phrase that word. New better word alert. We've updated scuttlebutt. A lot of the scuttlebutt is that, and it's probably true, to be honest. Like, we're talking about regulatory capture here, folks. There is an incentive for the incumbent AI companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, to kind of lock in laws and regulations now that are basically like, this stuff is so dangerous, both from, war and weapons and bioweapons point of view, and just from the power and damage to the economy, that it needs responsible people and guardrails to keep it in line. It needs regulation now, and we're here to make that regulation with you, which the criticism is like they're pulling up the drawbridge behind them. This locks in their advantage, from competitors or international competitors, for example. Right? That's a fair outline of kind of some of this is the context in which this is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also governments around the world are thinking about what should we do about AI? Like, how do we balance potential harms with the fact that we could be leaving behind a massive economic opportunity, and we don't know what that economic opportunity actually looks like. Yep. We're also looking at potential labor market disruption. Yep. All these governments are trying to figure this out.
Copyright.
The questions of copyright. Australia kind of started over the past few years on the understanding that it was going to regulate AI like EU style. They've kind of backed off that pretty substantially, actually. But there's still this sort of unease and this growing sense that if there are going to be major labor disruptions, the population is not going to be super happy about that. And then, all the rest of it about how do we get on board with AI investment? Is this a bubble? I don't know. There's lots of questions that people are trying to deal with. And these companies, I would say especially Anthropic, OpenAI is really involved, but Anthropic definitely is trying to be on the front foot with this stuff. So background here, Australia, the Australian government released a set of data center basic principles, which is sort of bouncing off a lot of the discourse that's happened in the US. And it seemed like the underlying principle is this idea that we would love data center investment, but we want them to pay their own way at every level, like infrastructure, power use, water use, all that kind of stuff. Which, you would generally expect, but they really want these companies to be we will pay for every possible impact this will have on your lives.
Yeah. I will say on the data center thing, this is an issue that data centers being built, I feel like it's taken a lot of energy out of a lot of the kind of housing, the broader housing questions. Data centers are the enemy. In random, I was at a party on the weekend, a fifth birthday, and I was chatting to one of the other dads there,
a 5-year-old,
and I was chatting to a bunch of 5-year-olds, and they were like, "No, data centers." I was like, "You're 5, you don't understand. It's more complex than that. They bring jobs." Anyway, one of the fathers of the 5-year-old, who is a product owner, I was like, "Oh, you're a Jira head." He was.
Don't you know Jira's being disrupted, Matt?
He does.
Etc.
He does. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. People at this party, it's just immediately oh, as long as they're not building another data center, it's normal parlance to be mad at people building data centers. Where it used to be, but it's a bit, gauche nowadays to be oh, not bloody apartments. I say gauche in some circles. In some circles, it's perfectly fine to be we don't want any more apartments, it ruins the character of the neighborhood. It's almost like that entire conversation has switched to data centers, which kind of everyone hates. I don't know if you found that. Local councils and everyone's just we're saying no to data centers.
Yeah, and it's kind of, in America, this is understandable discourse because there are a bunch of data centers around. They get whacked up in regional areas, etc. Australia obviously has them, but we don't really have that many of them. And, for example, there's a bunch of them either being built or already existing, in Alexandria in the industrial area. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of data center facilities around there, this Sydney chat. And again, I don't think you would really notice anything about that. It does seem like an imported discourse in the sense that people are we're not seeing any harms whatsoever and probably aren't encountering them. But because we've absorbed a lot from the US conversation, we're worried about it.
Yeah, but it feeds into cost of living and cost of housing, right?
Totally. There's a whole bunch of it.
And electricity prices, etc. I agree, but I'm surprised because I'm going to put this out there on the record. I'm pro building data centers. Everyone's anti data centers being near them until their fucking Netflix starts buffering.
Yep.
And then what? Then what?
Yeah, but that's it. That's a great question. I think you're also pro data centers because I think you can smell a $1,000 lunch coming your way. Then you will owe me.
No, look, sorry, for those who aren't in the know, we have a $1,000 lunch on the line. James reckons there's going to be a mass movement around, a mass popular political movement that is number one topic is anti-AI. That is the platform they run on. That was AI. Data centers do a range of things. CDNs.
I think you've really
databases.
You've really over-indexed on what was actually promised. You were we have a bet that there is going to be a mass multi-million person political movement led by, let's say, a Hitler-esque figure.
Let's say a revolution. A violent revolution.
A complete
a violent
ground
and
up
revolution.
Okay. I'll have to go back to the I think we had a few beers when we promised this, so I'm going to have to check the exact language I agreed to. But anyway, the point is, data centers, etc. Bringing it back to Anthropic, the context is that before Dario Amodei sat down and did a 3-hour address, it wasn't just Dario, it was a bunch of other Anthropic leaders to Australian MPs and other interested parties, which is just finished as we're recording this episode. They signed a memorandum of understanding with the Australian government that they're going to abide by those rules. Memorandum of understanding, not legally binding, not really binding in any way at all, actually, but they're trying to signal, we want to come into Australia, we want to build data centers, we want to be part of your national fabric, and we're going to be nice about it.
Yes.
All the AI bosses do this. I would say Dario Amodei probably does it the most, which is kind of like, the spooky ghost story thing.
Yeah.
I'm just going to read some quotes reported in Capital Brief. We had a couple of people that were sitting in on this meeting. This quote from Amodei: I'm probably the one in the industry who talks most about the risks of the technology. I tell people, no, it's not your imagination. These labor displacement effects are serious. The cyber risks are serious. The bio risks are serious. AI could, he said, cause cancer rates to inflect downwards, but
they could make them go upwards. No.
The fundamental challenge remains. This is actually, I think really sums up the way he talks. We know much less than we would like to, but the technology is moving faster than we'd like it. So we have to act, but we're not sure how to act. Very, very reassuring stuff. But again, this benefits Anthropic as a company, as like the safety first one. He's always pitching himself as like, this stuff is good. It's like a buck and bronco, folks. I'm trying to hold on to the reins. Subtext, do you really want Sam Altman to be the guy who's in charge of that?
Yeah, you really want Sam Altman or Xi Jinping.
Yeah, yeah, or Vladimir Putin. He's always he's always alluding to Russia as it's like, I don't think the Russian AI industry is pumping.
No.
Frankly.
I don't think a lot's pumping over there.
I mean, they've got their, what do they call it? Yeah, Yandex.
Yep.
It's like their Google equivalent that does all the, and apparently it's not bad for what it is. But again, I'm not betting on the Russians to win the AI race.
But yeah, this kind of fearmonger talk own book stuff, and like, again, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there will be displacements in AI. Anyone who's listened to this podcast, you dear listener, well, if it's your first time, to outline at least my own position is I think that this technology will fundamentally change things, but I think it'll fundamentally change things less than the computer. Like, we went from no computers to computers. That completely changed the world, but it did it in like a slow way and sure, heaps of industries went under and people lost their job, but it wasn't like unemployment spiked to 50%. There's nothing to do. We needed to bring in a UBI, etc. I think the AI transition is like really important and will fundamentally change things, but it'll happen, in a more chill way than everyone will be dead by 2029 if we don't lock in a long-term contract with me. Sorry, I'm overstating things there to a certain extent, but at least that's my position. So hence why I kind of scoff at the fear-mongering thing. But it does fit into it's the same thing is kind of happening now with this new model. Maybe we can move to like Mythos is this supposed model. There's been leaks. There's been, they accidentally released something on a blog post that someone screenshotted and put watermarks all over. Like, it's like, did you see that? Like the leaks of these things have someone's watermark all over it. Like kind of like, they used to do it like the Star back in the day or whatever, or like, Sun Herald. Anyway.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that probably more in a minute. But one of the whole things that it's like, it's only going to enterprise, and at the moment they've told a bunch of their biggest customers and governments about it because they're really, really worried that this thing is going to be a cybersecurity threat. Like, they're really worried that this thing is so good and so powerful, it's going to be able to like hack things. And once again, it's kind of like the fear mongering is like pretty convenient. It's like basically it's just saying, my thing is so hot, like I can't even hold it,
Yeah. Yes. We've talked about this on the pod for like years, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that this has been part of the pitch for a while. And again, I'm not saying that's not true. And I personally agree that like really capable agentic systems are going to be a cybersecurity problem that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And are going to be socially consequential as a result. But like, go back when OpenAI released O1, which was their first reasoning model, right? Back when those didn't exist. It was like the first one to do that. You needed to go through all these hoops to get access to the API because they were like, this shit is so powerful.
Yeah, you need to be like a trusted supplier and all this shit.
Yeah, we think this is going to be a real problem. I remember when I was trying to dig around with it first, and I just couldn't get access to it through the API because of that. No one would look back now and be like, oh yeah, OpenAI's O1 was a serious problem for cybersecurity.
Yeah, I know, but they're like, what do they do? I imagine they're kind of, they got the suitcase, like, we need to have a meeting with you, JP Morgan or whatever, US government, Pentagon, and they like take the suitcase out and their hands are kind of shaking, and inside the suitcase is a laptop that they like slowly open up, and there's like a Claude app is open, and they just like type
there's the Mac app,
SHOES, and their fingers shaking as they like hit the return key.
And then Claude goes, "What kind of shoes are you interested in?" And the guy and the president is like, "My God, that's crazy."
So you think that's crazy? Check this out, Avicii, France.
And you'd be like, "Sorry, what is that? What is that a pun of referencing?" Just think about it, bro. Avicii, France. Anyway, sorry, there's some in jokes for the people who've been listening for a while. This is your first episode. Welcome. This is a slight swerve, but whatever. There's been a little bit of chatter about this stuff because it does seem that Claude Mythos or Capybara or whatever it's called internally is like a massive model they're training.
To clarify, I think it was like internally named Capybara as like the secret thing, and then Mythos is a new tier. We've got, what's the bottom one called?
Haiku,
Sonnet, Opus, and then Mythos is at the top, which I think actually slaps. Again, I think their naming is mad, is great. Like, and now you got the banger one that's like enterprise, super expensive, and it's called Mythos. That works.
Yeah, it's big. And, there are rumors that it's like a 10 trillion parameter model when like the Opus right now is like 3 trillion or something. I'm pulling those numbers out of my ass, but that's roughly the scale they're talking about. And on the OpenAI side, they have one that's called Spud internally because they use like root vegetable nicknames, which is apparently also a gigantic model. Now, this stuff is actually interesting because the last time that a really truly gigantic, at least compared to the usual commercial ones, was trained was GPT 4.5, which was like that experimental one that OpenAI released and was like really good, but also insanely expensive. And like they basically stopped serving it incredibly quickly after they started serving it because it was obviously just chewing through compute. So that is interesting. And the information is suggesting that this Spud model is one of the reasons why, and Wall Street Journal also reported this, that OpenAI dropped Sora and ended production of Sora 3, which is obviously their video generation model. This was global news, was that they were wasting a huge amount of compute on meme videos when their Spud model needed that compute. Now, again, maybe this is some full-on dark arts PR scheme where they were like, oh, we had to get rid of our insanely unprofitable video venture because wait till you see what we got behind this big steel door. We'll just wait and see the shit that we're putting into it. It could be that, so I'm not suggesting it's not. But they did. What was today's fundraise? They announced they raised 120 bill.
Yeah, they completed one. It values them at like 850 bill. They raised like 113 or something like that at about 850, 860 bill. So just under $1 trillion. Yeah, I mean, I actually want to pause on the sort of thing again. I think that last week we went through all like the business cases for it being shit. I can't remember if we spent enough time on the fact that like as a product, at least the app is woeful and stupid and was never going to work. And we said at the time it was never going to work. I just wanted to
I think we
put that flag in the ground. Maybe we did talk about it last week, but I want to say it once again.
Totally.
That was never going to work.
I mean, to close the loop on that, there was reporting that it was losing $1 million a day.
Yeah.
I also saw figures that were larger than that, but I think that's just like pure revenue loss. Like it had made $2 million or something lifetime revenue. And it also, there's been suggestions that all their video stuff going forward is going to be like world model shit to teach AIs how shit moves, right? In the same way that a lot of other companies, including Google, do it. So anyway, that's interesting. So looping back to Anthropic and to finish that conversation, they're in Australia, they're selling data centers, they're doing the scare routine, which is coming in conjunction with this big leak. Who knows if the leak was engineered or not? Could have been, possibly, which points to the same thing. We're talking to governments and saying, watch out.
Yeah.
You should be scared and you should do business with us at the same time.
Yes. And so, yeah, again, just to reiterate, this Mythos model, the rumors are that it's going to be really expensive. Like it's more expensive than Opus and is
by several times more expensive, like 10 to 20 times more expensive.
Well, like the in-out token, like per mil tokens is like like 60, 120 or something, like $200. And when like the expensive models at the moment are what, like 30. So, it's like aimed at enterprises and probably Gary Tan. Like, I don't even know if, and I think that even again, part of this is the thing though, this could be a 01 moment where at the moment it's like, this is only for large enterprises and government. I mean, in 3 months time, we're like, hey, actually anyone could subscribe. Here's the new subscription cost or whatever. It's like, but if you want access to, the real shit, but I'm sure it is mad. I'm sure it's great. This is the thing though. This is once again, yet another moment where fools on Twitter are like, this is AGI. Like AGI has been achieved. Like we're there. This is AGI. And then the benchmarks come out and don't get me wrong, they look great. But like we're talking about going from like 86 on the software one to 92 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, that's a significant. I'm sure you'll notice. Oh yeah, shit, this one's better. But like, we're not talking about like going from 30 to 100. On any of these benchmarks. It's like it's a leap in the same way it seems like 3 to 4, 4 to 5, whatever, etc. are, if not smaller. But we'll see. I mean, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it does.
I'm sure it's wonderful, and evidence seems to suggest that they're using it internally. There was speaking of leaks, there was another leak. It wasn't a hack or anything, but apparently looks like Anthropic accidentally leaked like the repo for Claude code that people had been like digging through. And one thing that was evident is that they've been using this capybara model or whatever, mythos, whatever you want to call it, internally for their software development. And they've just got like a shitload of unreleased features just sitting in there, which one assumes that they've largely vibe coded with this model that is only accessible to them right now. So that's interesting. And again, this is one of those things that when you hear that and you're kind of like, it's always a reminder that, oh yeah, Anthropic actually does have access to these models to use for software development before anyone else does. They maybe led some credence to that they're always ahead of the curve of other SaaS companies and building out things.
Well, I mean, they're certainly shipping really quickly, as we said last week.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
The number of features that get dropped for Claude Code, and they're not a particularly old company, and these are like pretty, I mean, the speed with which they've basically replicated in a much better way, friggin' Claudebot, whatever it's called, OpenClaw. They've basically pulled it apart and replicated each feature in a like discrete manner with a lot more safety at the helm, and then packaged it in a bunch of different formats for like various occupations and contexts. It's like, fuck, they did that really quick.
Yeah. I mean, they argue, and they did argue today in Parliament House at this address, that like 90% of their code internally is done using Claude, which obviously, they're strongly incentivized to say that. But I think the release cadence, the release cadence, and B, the fact that, I'm sorry to say it, but a lot of the Claude app is just sloppy as hell. ChatGPT is a much better app than Claude. Like Claude, it's kind of busted. It's always got weird glitches. Like mine currently has a problem where it just won't update on any of my Macs.
That's annoying.
Like it goes click to restart to reopen and install the update, and it just doesn't. You get the same prompt when it reopens. I'm like, guys, you're vibe coding this weird Electron app.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool. Keep an eye out for more.
Yes.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be first on the scene.
Yeah. I guess I want to end it like, it is worth taking this stuff seriously and whatnot. And I'm sure, look, I'll really have egg on my face if we're all unemployed in, 500 days or whatever. But let's not be fooled.
And
also, let's keep building them data centers. Let's get everything happening nice and quick.
Just whack them up, folks. Just get them out there. Don't worry about it. And one that a few people have been requesting we talk about is this Meta case. And it's good. It's an interesting one to keep an eye on. I know, Raph, that you are not fully across this, so I'm going to explain it to you.
Explain like I'm like 7.
7, all right.
Or 8. Okay. Not 5, mate. Like 7 or 8.
8 years old, all right. Mate, you're in year 3.
That's right. I've just gone from the
how far we've come.
Small playground to the big playground.
You're in the big playground now, and I assume you can do really basic arithmetic.
Yeah. No, I know my times tables, maybe.
I wouldn't say you know all of your times tables. Maybe up to a certain degree, up to 5.
Okay. 5 times 5, 25.
Yeah, you've nailed it. All right, you're ready to hear about Meta. So basically, Meta lost a court case in a Los Angeles court. They had been sued by a 20-year-old plaintiff who said that her mental health had been damaged by Facebook and Instagram. And a jury found that it agreed and said that she had. Now, this was talked about in like apocalyptic terms because big loss for Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg got dragged in front of this court to testify back when it was going. And we know that like the entire infrastructure of Meta's communications department is like We cannot get Mark Zuckerberg sitting down somewhere where he has to answer like structured questions for hours. Because let's be honest, that is not his strength.
No. I would assume as like, well, any CEO really, but in particular big tech CEO, you pretty much number one on the top of the list of like things to avoid is having testifying in any manner.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So anyway, but they lost the case. But the reason for it is one that I think people should watch out for. So in the past, whenever Meta's been sued over content stuff, like this idea that my teenager got anorexia from being served up anorexia content and all the rest of it, the content that they saw harm their mental health, they've always butted up against, Section 230 of the Communications Act in the US, which is this. It shields platforms for any responsibility for the content that gets posted on those platforms. We provide the pipes, but we're not responsible for the quality of the water going down those pipes. And, a lot of people think this is great for free speech. It's like you can't attack the company for the speech that people post on it. Fine. But anyway, this was kind of like testing a sort of novel legal theory that actually you should sue them on the basis that like algorithmic feeds, endless content feeds, the way the product is designed is defective. So treat Facebook, treat Instagram, treat Reels, whatever, like it is a defective product, like a car that has a busted seatbelt, or, the comparison everyone makes is like big tobacco. The company knew that their product wasn't good based on all these internal communications. They knew it wasn't fit for purpose and it was broken, and we're going to sue them on that basis. Whether you swallow that or not, a jury in California just swallowed it. Two things. I don't think that Facebook or Meta is going to like dramatically change their product as a result of this. They're probably going to tinker out the edges and continue doing like their teen account stuff and all the rest of it. But the big suggestion is that other people are going to try this on. They've seen that a jury will go in their favor, which Meta obviously hates. The payout in this case was like $6 million, which is absolutely nothing to Meta. But I don't think they want dozens of cases going through getting $6 million payouts for harm based on the product being defective.
Yes. Yeah, well, yeah, it kind of opens the door. Look, interesting. Everyone knows where I stand on this. I think that social media was a terrible idea. So
yep.
I think that every single post should have to have human moderation. I think that's fine.
Yep. I think you should have to show it to your mom at the very least.
It should be like an old forum back in the day.
Yeah, I agree. There should be some like tyrannical mods.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about paying content moderators in the Philippines to like have to look at gore imagery. That's, they can keep doing that. But we need some like absolute power tripping forums mods to like enforce some arbitrary decorum.
Yeah, totally. And they're basically on there just reviewing every post. Just someone in your local neighborhood, really,
and just knock on your door and be like, mate.
There'd be plenty of people who'd volunteer for that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In the same way that there were people back in the era of forums, and indeed today, who would moderate forums for like 60 or 70 hours a week, completely free of charge, paid only in status.
Yep. Yeah,
we have to harness the same energy for that.
Yeah, I think that's the solution. It's been staring us in the face the entire time. It's a solved problem. Yet we persist. All right, cool. Let's get to the other side of the paywall. Let's talk about Ramageddon's over. You'll be pleased to know. Although PlayStation prices are going up, you see that? That's crazy. PlayStation 5 and maybe some other stuff.
All right, we'll talk on the other side. If you're not a Down Round Premium subscriber, you bloody well should be, folks. Downround.net. Get in there, sign up. Extra episode every week. You get to hear us twice, which is pretty big, obviously. We'll see you.